Have you ever wondered why some pilots navigate the complex airspace system with ease, while others constantly struggle with clearances, communications, and confusion? The difference isn't just experience, it's understanding the hidden psychology of the airspace system. Think of it like Neo seeing the Matrix for the first time. Suddenly everything clicks. Today I'm going to reveal 5 airspace secrets that the FAA doesn't explicitly teach in your training, but that professional pilots use every day. These aren't just theoretical concepts, they're practical techniques that will transform how you fly and interact with ATC. You'll learn how to see the airspace from the controller's perspective, anticipate their needs, and communicate more effectively. I've spent over 1,000 hours analyzing the national airspace system, interviewing controllers, and flying through every class of airspace. What I discovered is that there's a whole layer of unwritten rules and psychological principles that separate amateur pilots from the pros. These secrets are all about understanding the human element of aviation. By the way, I'm Mohammed Adel, and I've been flying for, well, quite a few years. I've made every airspace mistake possible so you don't have to. In this video, I'll break down the 5 critical airspace secrets that will make you a safer, more confident pilot. Let's dive in. The first secret to mastering airspace is understanding how controllers see the world. You might think they have a crystal clear picture of every aircraft in the sky, but that's not entirely true. Now, controllers do have amazing tools at their disposal, like radar systems that track aircraft positions, but these systems have limitations. Imagine you're a controller looking at a radar screen. You see blips representing aircraft, but you don't see the actual aircraft themselves. You rely on transponders and pilot reports to paint a mental picture of the traffic. And believe me, a vague position report can throw a real wrench in the works. One time I was flying into a busy Class C airspace and I gave a slightly vague position report. Instead of saying 10 miles south directly over the stadium, I just said 10 miles south. Big mistake. The controller had to stop everything, ask me clarifying questions, and it jammed up the entire frequency. From that day forward, I learned the importance of precise position reports. It's not just about following the rules, it's about giving the controller the information they need to do their job safely and efficiently. Remember, clear and concise communication is key. Now let's talk about airspace transition zones. These are areas where different classes of airspace meet, and they're often a source of confusion and anxiety for pilots. Why? Because the rules change, communication patterns shift, and it requires a heightened awareness. Imagine driving on a highway where the speed limit suddenly changes. You have to adjust your speed, be more aware of your surroundings, and anticipate potential hazards. Transition zones are like that, but in the air. The biggest mistake pilots make in transition zones is waiting too long to make their radio calls. They get caught up in navigating the airspace, checking their instruments, and by the time they switch frequencies, they're already inside the new airspace. Not good. The key is to be proactive. Don't wait until the last minute to contact the new controller. Start listening to the new frequency well before you reach the boundary and make your initial call at least 5 miles out. This gives the controller time to process your request and provide instructions without rushing. Think of it like merging onto a busy freeway. You wouldn't wait until the last second to signal and try to squeeze into a gap. You'd plan ahead, find an opening, and merge smoothly. The same principle applies to airspace transitions. By making your radio call 5 miles out, you're essentially signaling your intentions to the controller and giving them time to find a safe and efficient opening for you in the flow of traffic. I once witnessed a pilot who cut it way too close. He was so focused on his navigation that he forgot to switch frequencies until he was already inside the Class C airspace. The controller was not happy, and the pilot ended up with a stern talking to and a possible airspace violation on his record. Remember, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Make that call early and avoid the stress and potential consequences of a late transition. Now you might be thinking, what's the worst that could happen if I'm a little late with my call? Well, in the best case scenario, you'll get a grumpy controller. But in the worst case scenario, you could end up with an airspace violation. An airspace violation is a serious matter. It can lead to fines, suspension of your pilot's license, and even legal action. And trust me, dealing with the FAA is not something you want to experience. So next time you're approaching an airspace transition zone, remember the 5-mile rule. Make that radio call early, communicate clearly, and enjoy a smooth and stress-free transition. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the secrets of the Mode C veil and how to navigate it like a pro. Stay tuned for more airspace secrets. Alright pilots, let's talk about the Mode C veil. Now this isn't some cloak of invisibility, but it can feel like it sometimes if you're not prepared. Basically, the Mode C veil is an area around busy airports where transponders operating on Mode C, which report altitude, aren't always picked up by radar. Think of it like this. You're at a rock concert, right? The music's loud, everyone's shouting, and it's tough to hear someone talking right next to you. That's kind of what it's like for radar in the Mode C veil. So many transponders are chirping away that it's hard for the system to catch every single altitude report. Now this doesn't mean you can just fly willy-nilly in the veil. In fact, it's even more important to be on top of your game here. Controllers might not always have your altitude information from the transponder, so clear and concise communication is key. When you're flying in the veil, make sure your position reports are sharp and professional. Give them the full beans, your call sign, position, altitude, and intentions, just like you were taught. Remember, controllers are incredibly busy, especially in these high-traffic areas. By giving them the information they need, clearly and accurately, you're making their lives easier, and more importantly, contributing to a safer environment for everyone. I remember one time flying into Phoenix, a notoriously busy airspace, and I found myself smack dab in the middle of the Mode C veil. Now I knew this airspace like the back of my hand, but I could tell the controller was swamped. He was juggling arrivals, departures, and everything in between. So, when it was my turn to check in, I made sure my transmission was crystal clear. I gave him my call sign, position relative to the airport, altitude, which was crucial in the veil, and my intentions for the approach. Now I could tell he appreciated the clarity because he responded with a quick and concise Roger, squawking Mode C, maintain. You see, even though he might not have had my altitude on his screen initially, that clear communication built trust. It showed him I was a professional who knew what I was doing, especially in a busy environment like the Mode C veil. And trust me, that trust goes a long way in the air. Pilots, flying in the Mode C veil isn't about being scared or intimidated. It's about understanding the limitations of the system and stepping up your communication game. Think of it as an opportunity to showcase your professionalism and airmanship. When you're flying in the veil, you're essentially becoming an extra set of eyes and ears for the controller. You're providing that vital altitude information verbally, ensuring everyone stays safe. Now I'm not saying you need to put on a radio voice or anything, just be clear, concise, and professional in your transmissions. Remember, the better your communication, the smoother and safer everyone's flight will be. And that's what it's all about, right? Safe and enjoyable flying for everyone. Alright, let's talk about special use airspace, or SUA. Now I know what you're thinking, restricted areas, danger zones, keep out. And while that's true some of the time, it's not the whole story. One of the biggest misconceptions about SUA is that it's always active, like some kind of impenetrable force field. But the truth is, many SUAs have specific activation times, or are only active during certain operations. Think of it like this. You wouldn't assume a road is closed 24/7 just because there's a possibility of construction, right? You'd check for signs, road closures, or maybe even use a navigation app to find the best route. Well, the same goes for SUA. Before you plan your flight, it's crucial to check the status of any SUA along your route. Now you can find this information in a bunch of places: your pre-flight briefing, aeronautical charts, and even online resources like the FAA website. Don't just blindly avoid these areas because of a scary name on a map. Take a few minutes to understand the regulations and you might be surprised by what you discover. I remember planning a flight a while back and my initial route went right around this massive chunk of restricted airspace. It added a good 30 minutes to my flight time, which, let's be honest, nobody wants. So, I decided to dig a little deeper. I consulted the chart supplement and what do you know? That particular SUA was only active during weekdays for military training exercises. Since I was flying on a weekend, it was a free-for-all. Well, not exactly a free-for-all, but you get the idea. I was able to file my flight plan straight through the SUA, saving myself time and fuel. It was like finding a shortcut through a maze. The point is, don't be afraid to do your homework. Checking the status of SUA might just reveal a more efficient and enjoyable flight path. Now I get it. Airspace regulations can seem daunting, but trust me, they're there for a reason, to keep everyone safe. And when it comes to SUA, a little knowledge can go a long way. By understanding how to check the status of these areas, you're not only potentially saving yourself time and hassle, but also opening up a world of possibilities for your flights. So, next time you're planning a trip and see that dreaded SUA on your chart, don't despair. Take a moment to investigate. You might be surprised by what you find, and who knows, you might even discover a new favorite shortcut. Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the air. Alright pilots, let's talk about something we don't often consider, the ebb and flow of ATC workload. Just like we have rush hour on the roads, controllers have peak traffic periods in the sky. These periods can be influenced by a bunch of factors: time of day, weather conditions, even major sporting events. Think about it. Right after a big football game, you can bet there's going to be a surge in departures from that city. Now, imagine being the controller handling all those flights. They're dealing with a massive influx of aircraft, all wanting to get going at the same time. That's why understanding the ATC workload roller coaster is key to smoother operations. By timing our requests strategically, we can avoid those peak periods and increase our chances of getting those clearances we need. It's all about working with the system, not against it. Remember, timing is everything, especially when dealing with busy airspace. In the next section, we'll dive into specific strategies for identifying and navigating those peak workload periods. Stay with me. Now, you might be thinking, Joe, how am I supposed to know when ATC is slammed? Well, there are actually some telltale signs if you know where to look, or rather, listen. One of the biggest giveaways is the pace and tone of the controller's voice. If you're hearing clipped instructions, rapid-fire clearances, and minimal chit-chat, chances are they're working a heavy load. It's like that feeling you get when you walk into a packed restaurant and the waiter is rushing around like crazy. Not exactly the most relaxing atmosphere, right? Another clue is the complexity of instructions. If you're getting a lot of vectors, altitude changes, and speed adjustments in quick succession, that's another sign that things are heating up in the tower. It's like they're juggling a dozen plates at once and dropping one is not an option. So, what do you do when you pick up on these workload cues? Simple. Be a team player. Keep your transmissions concise, acknowledge instructions promptly, and avoid making any unnecessary requests. Remember, every little bit helps. By being mindful of the workload and adjusting our communication accordingly, we can make life a little easier for controllers and ensure smoother operations for everyone. Alright, let me give you a real-world example of how understanding ATC workload cycles paid off for me. I was flying into Chicago O'Hare, one of the busiest airports in the world, and I needed to request a runway change. Now, O'Hare is notorious for its delays, especially during peak hours. I could have just blindly called up ATC and made my request, but I knew that could easily get lost in the shuffle. Instead, I took a minute to analyze the situation. I listened to the radio chatter, observed the traffic flow on my navigation display, and noticed a slight lull in activity. That was my window of opportunity. I made my request clearly and concisely, and guess what? They approved it without hesitation. Now, this wasn't just luck. It was about understanding the rhythm of the airspace, recognizing the workload patterns, and timing my requests strategically. And that, my friends, is the power of ATC workload awareness. By being attuned to the controller's workload, we can significantly increase our chances of getting our requests approved, minimizing delays, and contributing to a safer, more efficient airspace for everyone. Now, for a bonus tip that can make a world of difference, especially for those of you still building your confidence in the air. I call it the student pilot advantage. You see, controllers are trained to provide additional assistance and support to pilots who identify themselves as students or unfamiliar with an area. And you know what? There's absolutely no shame in that. In fact, it's a sign of a good pilot. Someone who's aware of their limitations and isn't afraid to ask for help when they need it. It shows you're prioritizing safety and willing to learn. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Won't they get annoyed if I keep saying I'm a student? But trust me, it's the opposite. Controllers would much rather know you might need a little extra guidance than be left in the dark. Remember, clear and honest communication is key to a safe and efficient flight. So don't hesitate to let them know if you're feeling a little unsure, need more time to process instructions, or just want to double-check something. They're there to help. Let me share a personal story from my early days of flying that really highlights the power of the student pilot advantage. I was on a solo cross-country flight feeling pretty good about myself when I encountered some unexpected weather. The clouds were building up faster than I anticipated and I was starting to get a little flustered. I knew I needed to request a deviation, but I wasn't entirely sure how to phrase it or what information the controller needed. Instead of trying to wing it, I took a deep breath and said, "Center, this is your call sign, student pilot requesting a deviation for weather." And just like that, the tone of the controller's voice changed. He became calmer, more reassuring, and talked me through the entire process. He gave me clear, concise instructions, provided regular updates on the weather situation, and even offered alternative routes if needed. It was like having a guardian angel flying alongside me. That experience taught me a valuable lesson: never be afraid to ask for help, especially when it comes to aviation safety. You'd be surprised how understanding and supportive controllers can be when you're upfront and honest about your experience level. The student pilot advantage isn't just about getting extra help, it's about creating a more collaborative and supportive environment in the cockpit. When you're upfront about your experience level, it allows controllers to tailor their instructions and communication style to your needs. They might give you more detailed explanations, repeat instructions if needed, or provide more time to process information. This personalized approach can significantly reduce your workload, minimize stress, and ultimately make you a safer and more confident pilot. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want a little extra support in the air? Whether you're a brand new student or a seasoned pilot flying into unfamiliar territory, never underestimate the power of open and honest communication. Remember, in aviation, we're all in this together. Controllers are there to help us navigate the skies safely, and by being upfront about our needs, we can create a more collaborative and supportive environment for everyone. These 5 airspace secrets: understanding the controller's perspective, mastering transition zones, leveraging the Mode C veil psychology, knowing the special use airspace reality, and being aware of ATC workload cycles, will transform how you operate in the national airspace system. Remember, airspace isn't just about memorizing rules and boundaries. It's about understanding the human psychology behind the system, and using that knowledge to fly more safely and efficiently. If you found this helpful, I've created a free downloadable cheat sheet with these 5 secrets plus 5 more that I didn't have time to cover in this video. You can grab it at your website. Also, if you're struggling with radio communications specifically, check out my video on the 7 radio phrases that will get you immediate ATC clearance, which goes deeper into the communication aspect of airspace navigation. Thank you for watching, and remember, in aviation, knowledge isn't just power, it's safety. I'll see you in the next video.